It is. Yeah. All about timing. Daniel Dubois' timing in the end won the day, did it not, Simon? You were there. Yeah. Brutal was right.
It was, yeah, a lot of shock and awe in there in terms of Daniel being dropped in the first 10 seconds. I think that silenced the auditorium. And then the sheer sort of brutality, that's what I always thought it was going to be a very brutal fight. Someone was going to, when I was talking to the two boys on the Friday night, the sentiment I used was someone's going to get beaten into submission.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And the debate will rage on, and we'll talk about it, and Ben Davidson will come on in various shows, and Don Charles is coming on tomorrow and talk boxing, talk about all the vagaries and peculiarities. But what Daniel Dubois put on a hell of a performance. So did Fabio. But Daniel had so many questions to answer in people's minds, and he reclaimed a belt.
Yeah.
And he must be given all the praise and credit for that.
Well, Daniel Dubois' father, Stan Dubois, has spoken to me just before we came on air, and we're going to bring this interview to you shortly. But some very interesting observations, Simon, from Stan Dubois.
Sure there is.
You were saying to me, and Saturday night was no exception on that front.
Yeah, I'm quite frankly, I'm a little bit more interested in hearing from Don Charles. But the fact is that Stan's a big influence on his son's life. Daniel, whatever his father may or may not say, Daniel's performance was remarkable on Saturday. He may have been dropped in the first 10 seconds. He might have been anxious going into a fight. But what he did is he overcame adversity. And in life, I think people that can overcome adversity are a very rare commodity in society. Most people succumb to it and use it as an excuse for not achieving things. Daniel had to go deep into the trenches in an auditorium that was very pro-Fabio. When Fabio came in, you've got two fighters that have got no affinity with Manchester. Brilliant fan base, brilliant, 19,500 people inside that auditorium. Frank put on a hell of an event, great fights before it.
Yeah.
So it was a really great, the Co-op Arena is a really good indoor stadium. It's really well set up.
Yeah.
And so when Fabio came in, he was kind of the fans' favourites. And so then, and of course, Fabio looked fabulous, walked out in his Ipswich Town regalia. Mark Ashton was there, the Ipswich Town chairman. I had a conversation with him. And Daniel walked straight into a right hand. Was down in 11
seconds.
Yeah.
We're going to hear from Stan Dubois later on, nonetheless. Just gone at 11:30 this Monday morning. It is Monday, May the 11th. We're flying through the month. Next month, all eyes on the World Cup. We're live on talkSPORT with Selco. It's where the trade goes. Also live on your TV as well, even Prime Video. It was live on DAZN on Saturday night. It was also live on talkSPORT. The big fight up in Manchester between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. It was a brutal encounter that saw Daniel Dubois beat Wardley, and he stepped up, the man with all the spoils at the end of an 11th round stoppage. But it was a bruising affair. Brutal, to say the least of it. Barry McGuigan on social media, the corner, this is Fabio Wardley's corner, should have pulled him out at least 3 rounds before the stoppage. Don't believe Wardley will ever be the same fighter again. We're going to get into that. Frank Warren, who promoted both fighters, is going to join us before we go today. But this morning, just before we came on air, I spoke to Daniel's dad, Stan Dubois, and I asked him, how do you look back on it all?
I'm so proud of him, and for him to go in there and start off on rocky grounds and come through it and make all the doubters wrong and really believe in himself and deliver. How can I not be proud of that? It's unbelievable, really. It was a great fight, and now he's 3-time heavyweight champion, not 2-time. He won it in LA with the Don King show, and he's done it a 3rd time. It's fantastic.
Stan, what were you really thinking when he hit the canvas after 11 seconds?
I thought, well, here we go. He's a great puncher, so I can't take nothing away from Wardley. If he catches you, stuff can happen, and as we saw, it happened. But he got back up, and I was encouraging him to get back up and hold his composure and work off of his jab. And because he's had such a good amateur career, I suppose he just went back into boxing, and then, and he delivered. It was fantastic.
There were some out there that doubted Daniel. What did you make of the narrative before the fight about Daniel lacking heart?
Well, they don't know Daniel, do they? And boxing is all about critics and stuff like that. So I don't really look into that too much. I just make sure that he's prepared right, and he will show the doubters and show them that they're wrong, really.
Was it disrespectful towards your boy, Stan?
boxing carries a lot of disrespect, so you've got to be thick-skinned, really, haven't you? So I think Daniel's very thick-skinned. I don't think it bothers him too much, to be honest.
All sorts of talk that Fabio Wardley maybe could and should have been pulled out of the fight going into the latter stages of it. You know, again, now you look back in it.
Well, I wouldn't have allowed my boy to take such a beating like that. No way in the world. I would have got him out of there, you know. I would have insisted that they stopped it. I was looking at it and I'm thinking, why are they doing that? Why don't someone stop it? Because he can get permanent damage. At least give him a chance to come back and fight another day.
So, no doubt, Stan, you thought it should have been stopped earlier.
100%, yeah. 100. But saying that, he has got a way of coming back from the dead. So I suppose they had to give him that chance because he's done it in nearly all his fights. So I would have still pulled him out because that blood didn't look too good. And, you know, maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked, but I thought it was bad.
Have you been in touch with Wardley's people, Stan, since the fight?
Yeah, I went in the dressing room to tell him how much of a warrior he is, but he was with the doctor, so I never got to speak to him. But yeah, the guy's a warrior, 100%.
Stan, talk of a rematch. Would you want a rematch? Would you?
I think Daniel would. Daniel is a fighter. He would fight, but it's all up to Fabio if he takes a rematch, really. But Daniel will improve and do a better job the next time. He was full of nerves, to be honest, Daniel, because of his last fight was a stoppage. And I know he weren't saying it, but I know it was in his mind. I could tell when he was a bit nervous, but he got through it. But the next time he'll be a lot better, so they'll have to think carefully because he'll do a number on him next time.
If he wasn't to fight Wardley again, Stan, what would you think might be next? Moses Itoma or even Alexander Usyk?
I wouldn't see the point in fighting Alexander Usyk again. I would say to Daniel, fight another British heavyweight or someone like Moses maybe, but, you know, he's not that clever with southpaw, so I wouldn't advise him really to go in with a southpaw until he's had maybe another southpaw fight.
That was Stan Dubois, father of Daniel Dubois. Later on, we're going to be hearing from Frank Warren, who's joining us live, promoter of the two fighters on the night. Simon, you were ringside. You watched it very, very closely. It was brutal. Should it have been stopped earlier?
I think so. I think I was actually talking to Carl Froch about it yesterday on the way home back from Manchester, and he was suggesting that perhaps there was even as early as the 7th or 8th round, there was little point that Fabio staying into that fight much longer. There's always the possibility because of Fabio's track record of being able to have an equaliser that knocks people out with one punch. But that's when Fabio's fighting against Justice Hooney and people of that calibre, not when he's fighting against Daniel Dubois, and that was always the question. I can tell you one thing, Stan suggesting that Daniel Dubois wasn't bothered by the observations about a lack of heart, I can categorically assure you that he was, to such a point that it was a little uncomfortable before I started talking to them on Friday night for DAZN about putting the question to him about the heart question. I mean, look, it was a great fight in so many different ways. I think probably one of the most significant things for Fabio was part of his undoing was that he got such early success, and it may have convinced him that the only punch he needed to throw for the rest of the fight was a right hand. He got shown some of the limitations of Fabio to some extent, but you can't take anything away from him. You know, he's achieved wonderful things. The fascinating thing will be to see if he wants it again. The big thing.
Would you like to see it again?
Well, the big thing that all the fight fraternity will tell you is not about the loss, but what it's done to him, and leaving him in there for that amount of time to take that amount of punishment. What it's left him with, what he can come back with, what's left in his soul, and what's left in him physically, because it was a beating, and Fabio was not going to go down. And so there was a responsibility, almost a Hippocratic responsibility from his corner to look at him and say, and Ben Davidson will have his own say, and hopefully we're going to get him on the show tomorrow to talk about it, his trainer, to suggest that ultimately there's an outcome to be explained as to why he kept him in there. Because there's no way Fabio Wardley was going to go down. He was not going to go down. He was going to stay into this fight, and it was almost this inconceivable possibility this fight might go to points. Everyone in the world had said there's no possibility that this was going to go to points, and yet we are in 11th round, and somehow or another they're still standing up. I mean, it was a great fight, a great atmosphere. The Mancunian fight fans are fantastic, and they were also treated to a wonderful undercard of great fights with people getting knocked out and shocks being exhibited. So it all built up into a really, really good evening. And you've got to give Daniel all the kudos. I don't know what Stan's talking about in terms of 2 times heavyweight champion of the world, because He obviously beat Philip
3 times or something.
3 times, yeah. My point is, he's twice. He beat Philip Hrgovic and was given the belt. He then went into Anthony Joshua and bashed him up, which I think was his greatest performance. And then this performance takes back the WBO belt and gives him WBO rather than the IBF he had. Daniel, I don't see Daniel fighting Moses Atoma. I'd be gobsmacked if Frank sticks him in with Moses Atoma. I think there's 2 opportunities to run those guys in different directions. But I can't see the appetite for Usyk.
So
the big question is, does he fight?
Nobody wants to fight
What's your
Moses,
feeling
do they?
about should this have been stopped earlier? Because I mean, I'm watching it now. Round 6, Wardley's getting hurt.
Well, that's the point. That's the point I just made. Talking to Carl Froch, and I was sitting next to Josh Boazzi, and Josh Boazzi was saying to me, "This is disgraceful," and I'll tell Ben when I see him. This is shocking. This is shocking what's going on here. He should be taken out. You've got to leave something of the fighter. I spoke to Frocci yesterday afternoon on the way home back in the car. He was of the same mindset. To Martin's point, 6th round, 7th round, Fabio was taking a beating. The problem is you've got a world title fight, right, which means you give these guys as much latitude as you possibly can. You've got someone like Fabio that never wants to give up, and he's got a punch that can equalise. So at some point, you've got to make that decision, what's best and what's right. And Ben will defend himself and make his own observations as to the reasons why he didn't do it. I mean, Fabio will come again. He will have the rematch clause. It's not up to Daniel Dubois. I'm pretty sure, and Frank will be able to substantiate this, that if Fabio's right to have the rematch, because Fabio was a defending champion, if he wanted a rematch clause, it's for him to call it. But you look at that and you think, I mean, it was remarkable that he was still on his feet, and it was a remarkable performance by Daniel Dubois because he had to dig himself out from being dropped in the first round, which was a flash knockdown, but they could see the nerves. And then I was talking to Boaz, and he was saying to me, look at Daniel Dubois after round 4. Every round, Daniel Dubois was out early, out ready to go. And you see the slap where Don Charles slapped him.
Yeah.
Don Charles slaps him in one of the rounds to wake him up. And there's brilliant training from Don Charles. And so much credit has got to be given to John Charles because these guys jettisoned him. Then they brought him back because it didn't work with Tony Sims. And look at the outcome. He's clearly got the zeitgeist on how to communicate with Daniel, how to get him going. And Daniel deserves all the praise in the world for winning this title because there's lots of doubters about him. He's had to live with the pressure of being considered to be one of the most biggest hopefuls in this country.
Yeah.
And all the observations against Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk that he swallowed it and didn't fancy it. This was a great fight, but it was always, I said it to them, the fighters on Friday night, we said it all week, this was going to be someone battered into submission. Now, whether you like that or not, and whether the questions about boxing, because I can tell you what I saw, Jim. I saw, sitting next to the ring with the people that I was with, the doctor putting his fingers into the hole where Fabio Wardley's nose was, between his eyebrow and his nose, because there was a bloody hole there. And it was a bit disconcerting, to be honest. So my answer is, I think most people would say he should have been taken out.
I mean, I'm looking at a message here. It was a great night for British boxing. It was also a landmark night, though, for the anti-boxing brigade. That's not altogether untrue,
but
isn't it,
yes, of course. I think. I mean, you could also say that it was very disconcerting to watch Fraser Clark laying in the corner after Fabio Wardley knocked him out, and people felt that his entire face had a stroke. That was how bad when Fraser Clark got knocked out. Fabio Wardley is the person that can speak to this situation and say, I'm a professional boxer.
Well,
I know
do you think his reputation, though, Simon, because we know he could spring back with a big right hook.
Ben Davison will join us tomorrow. The man in Wardley's corner.
His trainer's job is not to manage his reputation.
Yeah, and to be fair to Davison, he says on 2 occasions we did look at pulling him out, but on one occasion the end of the round came, and the second occasion Fabio fired back and killed Dubois' momentum. Anyway, Ben can speak for himself, and no doubt will tomorrow morning.